I represent an organisation called African Infrastructure Investment Managers. It's a joint venture between Macquarie Group of Australia and Old Mutual Group of Africa, both of whom have been active in the infrastructure space for over 30-odd years, both in Africa as well as around the world. Our orientation is, or rather the business is, an equity fund manager. So we see the world through the lens of equity. And we play right across the spectrum functionally. We invest in assets, we manage assets, we exit assets. We also act as a developer in some instances. We manage institutional capital. And at the moment we have an aggregate of about $1.5 billion represented in 3 jurisdictions with people on the ground. And what I thought about with this panel was giving some guidance to developers. We do like developers. We need developers. All institutional investors do need people out there doing the hard yards, looking under the bushes and kicking the tires to identify the opportunities. It is, to an extent, a bit of a thankless task, because I'm sure if you ask any developer, they'll say they go to the financiers and the financiers bring out the wish list of all the things that could go wrong instead of all the things that could go right. But I think what this panel in part was seeking to do was to give some guidance to the developers out there, and I don't know how many there are of you, but I came up with a list of 7. You know, any advice has to have a number in front of it. So here's the 7 things you've got to do as a developer. The first thing is, don't try to do it all yourself. Developers are very energetic people. They like to hoard stuff to themselves, and typically they try to do it all themselves. Don't do it all yourselves. Go get advice. Talk to people who've done it before, and don't reinvent the wheel. Too often we see the same mistakes being made over and over again, and they have been learnt in other projects, in other territories. So do get advice. The second bit of advice, which I'm sure Vern is going to applaud, is equity is the most important. Equity is the most important guys to talk to. When you get to the heavy lifting of a deal, and once you've got the technical scope for the project, go talk to the equity checks. And the reason for that is equity takes the most risk. And if you get equity comfortable with the deal, then everybody else who comes in on the balance sheet below equity will probably find comfort in there. What tends to happen quite often is you go talk to the lenders, you go talk to the contractors, you go talk to everybody else who are lower down or higher up the risk prism, and all the toxic stuff floats down to the bottom, and then you try to sell the slug of equity, by which stage nobody's buying it. So talk to equity first, get them comfortable. The third point is identify and manage conflicts of interest. They're implicit in what we do. It's a small industry. The projects we do are all interwoven. Spend time right at the outset identifying where the conflicts of interest exist in your project. Understand them, articulate them. It reflects very well on the manner in which you present your project, and they're going to come out anyway. So identify them up front, dimension them, deal them. The fourth point is don't be too greedy too soon. It's fine to be greedy, but don't do it too soon. Too often, developers try to sell the value, the notional value of a project, 3 or 4 seconds after they've had the idea about it. So recognize that your alignment to the project and the economics of that in that project need to be aligned to the long-term funders. So be patient. It will get rewarded, but don't be too eager to pull the value out too soon. Fifth tip, keep it simple. Keep your projects small, keep them simple, keep them stuff you can describe to your friends and your grandmothers and your children. If you can do that, you can probably explain it to bankers. Don't make it too large, don't make it too complicated, and keep it small. Keep it as small as it needs to be. The secret is not to have too many people sitting around around the table, because if you need everybody to reach consensus, which you do, the difficulty with that goes up exponentially as you add people to the table. So focus on keeping it simple. Tip number 6, be aware that most of the money people you go talk to are representing institutions, and they are governed by regulations. There's fiduciary acts, there's KYC, there's all these things that govern the manner in which money is deployed, and it ranges across methods of deployment of capital, environmental protection, and the likes. The essence of that is any deal that you've got which has been the product of an irregular award, or it's a mate's deal, or it's something that doesn't really feel right, chances are it won't survive the scrutiny of due diligence. So my advice is don't do it right from the outset. My seventh tip, and the final one, is always allow enough time and enough money to get you through the development phase. It's not uncommon to see a project be carried by 3 or 4 developers because the first one's run out of energy, run out of time, run out of money. And then the next guy comes along and has a bash, and usually the project gets there, but it takes 3 developers to get it there. If you've got a project, anticipate that it's going to take longer than you think. Make sure you've got enough development capital at the outset. Talk to institutions like ourselves who do fund these type of things, and other colleagues in the room. Make sure you've got enough money to see you the course, and then pin your ears back and give it a go. And be successful. We do need you, all those developers out there. We do need you. We there to help you to be successful. So talk to the likes of ourselves, and let's see how we can help you. Thank you.
Doing business in Africa. You can't afford to be without Africa Investor.